The galaxy had long accepted that dragons existed, but it had never accepted that one of them was a millionaire. Much less that the richest dragon alive employed a human assistant. Across the spiral arms of the Heliox cluster, legends whispered of Varex the Gilded, a cosmic dragon whose scales reflected nebulae and whose breath could melt asteroids into liquid gold. Varex did not hoard treasure in caves like primitive myths suggested. He invested, diversified, and owned controlling interests in hyperspace shipping lanes, quantum energy grids, and entire moons leased out as luxury resorts. Where other dragons ruled through fear, Varex ruled through contracts. Where empires rose and fell, his wealth only compounded. And yet, the greatest mystery surrounding Varex was not his fortune, nor his size, which eclipsed battleships. It was the human who walked calmly beside him. Her name was Ilara Miles. Ilara was biologically unremarkable by galactic standards, no cybernetic enhancements, no psionic gifts, no alien lineage. She wore simple attire, carried a thin hollow slate, and spoke with quiet confidence even when addressing beings that could crush cities without effort. She was the personal assistant to the richest dragon in known space. The Galactic Council first noticed Ilara during the Convergence Summit, a gathering so powerful that even supernova guilds sent representatives. Varex arrived late as always, tearing open a rift in space above the council chamber, his colossal form folding into a compressed projection that still dwarfed every delegate present. Councillors braced for arrogance, intimidation, and draconic disdain. Instead, Varex said nothing. Ilara stepped forward, cleared her throat, and began speaking on his behalf. Apologies for the delay, scheduling conflict with the Andromeda Mining Syndicate. We appreciate your patience, she said calmly. The chamber froze. A human addressing elder races without deference, without fear, without permission. Several delegates prepared psychic countermeasures, assuming some form of mind control. Others scanned her for hidden weapons or implants, finding none. Varex lowered his massive head slightly, a gesture so subtle yet significant that the room erupted in silent panic. The dragon was deferring to the human. Ilara continued, swiping through data on her slate. My employer has reviewed your proposal regarding dark matter taxation routes, and he has identified 14 inefficiencies, 6 redundancies, and 1 catastrophic economic collapse scenario that will occur within 8 cycles if adopted. A counselor from the Orion Dominion snapped back, demanding to know how a human could possibly comprehend multi-dimensional trade flows. Ilara looked at him and smiled politely. I built the model, she said. That was the moment the galaxy began to pay attention. Ilara had not always walked among stars. She had grown up on a peripheral human colony, a place too insignificant to conquer and too poor to exploit. Her world survived on logistics, optimization, and careful resource management. Scarcity had taught her efficiency better than any academy. She had been working as a junior systems analyst when Varex's holdings acquired the planetary shipping network. Unlike others, she questioned the acquisition logic, noticing a pattern in the dragon's investments that suggested long-term galactic stabilization rather than profit alone. Instead of being punished for questioning a dragon, she was summoned. The day she met Varex, she expected death. What she encountered was curiosity. The dragon listened as she spoke, his ancient eyes tracking probabilities faster than supercomputers. When she finished explaining how his logistics chain could be improved by rerouting through unstable wormholes during micro-calm windows, Varex laughed, a sound that shattered mountains far away. He hired her on the spot. Over the years, Ilara became more than an assistant. She translated draconic intent into language empires could understand. She negotiated treaties that prevented wars before they began. She corrected Varex when his plans overlooked emotional variables dragons rarely considered. In return, Varix gave her access to wealth, to knowledge, and to the galaxy's most dangerous rooms. Now, standing before the Galactic Council, Ilara delivered the revised proposal with surgical precision. Trade routes realigned, power balanced, conflicts defused before ignition. When she finished, silence dominated the chamber. Finally, the High Arbiter asked the question every being was thinking. Why does a dragon need a human? Ilara glanced back at Varix, who gave a slow, approving nod. She turned to the council and answered honestly, because intelligence without perspective becomes stagnation, and power without humility becomes extinction. Varix spoke then, his voice resonating through dimensions. She reminds me what dragons forget. The council ratified the proposal unanimously, an event unprecedented in recorded history. News spread faster than light. A human assistant had out-negotiated elder species, corrected a dragon, and reshaped galactic economics in a single session. Across the stars, empires whispered her name. Corporations sought her services. Assassins studied her habits. Ilara returned to Varix's flagship, unaware that her calm competence had just destabilized centuries of galactic hierarchy. As the ship slipped into hyperspace, Varix spoke privately. "They will come for you now." Ilara nodded, already planning countermeasures. "Then it's time they learned," she replied, "that dragons are not the most dangerous beings in the galaxy." And far beyond known space, something ancient stirred, having finally noticed the human who advised a dragon. The first attempt on Ilara's life came quietly. A financial audit request routed through 6 shell governments and masked as routine compliance. Ilara spotted it instantly. The encryption was flawless, the authorization legitimate, but the timing was wrong. Someone wanted access to Varix's internal ledgers, not to expose fraud, but to map influence. She closed the request with a polite refusal and rerouted the sender into a legal labyrinth that would occupy their analysts for decades. Varix watched the maneuver with interest, his tail coiling slowly through the vacuum of space. "You didn't destroy them," the dragon observed. Ilara nodded. "Fear is more effective when hope still exists." Word spread that crossing the dragon's assistant was worse than angering the dragon himself. Corporations lost market access overnight. Warlords discovered their supply chains inexplicably rerouted into dead sectors. Entire fleets ran out of fuel without ever seeing an enemy. None of it traced back to Ilara directly. It never did. The Galactic Council convened again within 2 cycles, this time without Varix present. They summoned Ilara alone. The chamber felt different without the dragon's overwhelming presence. More dangerous. Predators who would never bare their fangs before Varix now studied the human carefully. The High Arbiter spoke cautiously. "You have become a destabilizing factor." Ilara inclined her head slightly. "So did agriculture, currency, and faster-than-light travel," she replied. A delegate from the Vix collective accused her of manipulating galactic markets. Ilara did not deny it. "I optimize them," she corrected. "Manipulation implies intent to deceive. I am very transparent about my outcomes." Hollow projections filled the chamber. Graphs showing reduced famine, declining conflict zones, and collapsing black market weapons trades. All linked back to Varix's investments. All structured by Ilara. "You are consolidating power," another counselor hissed. Ilara met his gaze, unflinching. "No," she said calmly. "I am redistributing accountability." The council recessed in chaos. Outside the chamber, envoys waited. Some begged, some threatened, Some offered fortunes that dwarfed planetary GDPs. Ilara declined them all. Back aboard Varix's flagship, the dragon sensed something he had not felt in millennia. Concern. They are afraid of you, he said. Ilara smiled faintly. They should be afraid of what happens if I stop. Beyond council politics, darker forces took notice. The Void Archivists, beings older than stars, custodians of forbidden knowledge. They had observed dragons rise and fall. Observed civilizations burn themselves out. But a human advising a dragon to stabilize the galaxy was new. And new variables were dangerous. An emissary arrived without warning, phasing through the flagship's shields as if they were mist. A being composed of shadow and memory, its voice layered with extinct languages. You alter trajectories beyond acceptable thresholds, it intoned. Ilara did not reach for security. She simply looked up from her slate. Then update your thresholds, she replied. The emissary recoiled slightly, unused to defiance. You are insignificant, it said. Ilara nodded. Individually. She gestured, and the hollow slate projected simulations showing future timelines. In every stable outcome, her presence remained. In every timeline where she was removed, galactic collapse followed within centuries. The emissary was silent for a long moment. You are a convergence point, it finally said. Varix smiled, exposing stars between his teeth. I told you humans were interesting. The archivists withdrew, unsettled. For the first time in recorded eternity, they did not intervene. That night, as hyperspace folded around the ship, Ilara stood alone in the observation deck. She understood now that she was no longer merely an assistant. She was a symbol, a reminder that intelligence scaled differently than power. Messages poured in from across the galaxy. Rebels asking for guidance. Rulers asking for forgiveness. Dragons asking questions. Ilara archived them all, prioritizing only one. A message flagged from beyond mapped space. No sender, no known origin. Just a single line. We see you now. Ilara closed the message and exhaled slowly. Looks like we're moving into Phase 3, she murmured. Behind her, Varix's wings unfurled, casting shadows across entire star systems. Then the galaxy is not ready, he said. Ilara smiled, calm as ever. It never is. And far beyond the reach of dragons and councils alike, something ancient began to move toward them. The warning came not as an attack, but as silence. Entire trade networks went dark simultaneously. No distress calls, no debris, no evidence of sabotage. Just absence. Ilara noticed the pattern before anyone else. Sectors with the highest dependence on exploitative economies had vanished from galactic data feeds. Not destroyed, not conquered. Disconnected. She traced the anomaly beyond known hyperspace corridors. Into regions, maps, labeled simply as unrecoverable. Someone had severed reality's access points. Varix sensed it too, his scales dimming as if starlight itself grew cautious. This is not an empire, he rumbled. It is an erasure. The Galactic Council panicked. Emergency sessions collapsed into accusations. Blame ricocheted across species lines, until one truth became unavoidable. The event had occurred shortly after Ilara's rise to prominence. Her name became a fault line. Some worlds demanded her protection. Others demanded her execution. Ilara remained steady. She compiled data, cross-referenced ancient records, and found something the archivists had hoped no one would notice. The galaxy had faced this before. Long before dragons claimed the stars. Before councils or currencies. There existed a mechanism, an autonomous corrective force designed to reset civilizations that grew too interconnected, too dependent, too unpredictable. It was called the Null Accord. Not a treaty, a protocol embedded into spacetime itself, activated when galactic systems reached instability thresholds that threatened long-term existence. And Ilara had triggered it, not by malice, but by success, by stabilizing trade, reducing conflict, and aligning incentives across species. She had accelerated convergence faster than the galaxy's ancient safeguards allowed. Varex listened in silence as she explained. For the first time, the dragon felt something close to regret. "They will erase us," he said. Ilara shook her head. "No," she corrected. "They will erase dependence." The distinction mattered. The Null Accord did not destroy worlds. It isolated them, cutting off shared infrastructure, communication, and hyperspace access, forcing civilizations to stand alone until they either adapted or collapsed. Ilara addressed the galaxy publicly for the first time. Her image broadcast across every remaining network. "I did not know this safeguard existed," she said honestly. "But now that I do, we have a choice." Worlds listened. "We can resist and fracture," she continued. "Or we can evolve beyond the conditions that activate it." Some laughed. Some raged. Some prayed. A coalition formed overnight. Systems that had benefited from Ilara's reforms rallied to her vision. They began dismantling monopolies, decentralizing resources, and teaching redundancy. Others chose fear. They hoarded, fortified, and severed ties preemptively, believing isolation would spare them. The galaxy split, not by species, but by philosophy. The Null Accord responded. Isolation zones expanded. Hyperlanes collapsed into non-existence. Through it all, Ilara worked without rest, designing frameworks that allowed cooperation without dependency, trade without exploitation, power without centralization. Varex became her shield, using his wealth and influence not to dominate, but to buy time. Dragons across the stars watched him, conflicted, inspired. Some followed, others withdrew, unwilling to abandon ancient hordes and control. Then came the message that changed everything. From the Null Accord itself. Not a warning, a query. Can you maintain stability without convergence? Ilara stared at the words. For the first time, the galaxy was not judging her. It was testing her. She smiled. "Yes," she replied. "And I can prove it." Varex felt awe ripple through his ancient core. "You are negotiating with reality," he said. Ilara nodded. "Someone has to." As isolation spread and alliances hardened, the fate of the galaxy balanced on an unprecedented experiment. And in the silence between stars, the Null Accord watched, waiting to see if a human could outthink extinction itself.